my life's journey to be better and do better and live better. And that was where my health journey and my journey of healing and self-discovery started. So it's been 5 years now, and I've been able to completely turn my life around. And I used a series of different healing practices and tools and techniques to help myself do that. And this was not from a book that I'd read or any advice that I received, but I began instantly feeling gravitated towards meditation. And I started doing that. And I had a profound experience the first time I did. I had went into this very transcendent state, and I immediately noticed this green light pulsating in my forehead, and I could feel this vibrational energy, this electrical current running through my body, but mainly from the neck to the hips area. And it was just a very profound, life-changing experience. I started recognizing that I had all the answers inside. I was holding this blueprint to all of my life's problems, and all of the answers were right here within me. When I started getting centered and aligning with self, I recognized that I could self-heal. It was eye-opening. I couldn't believe it. And I would not have believed it if I heard somebody else speaking on it, if I hadn't lived through that experience myself. But I know that I'd survived all of these horrible things for a reason, and that I have been put into place to help others.
It's an amazing story, and I'm sure there are many of our listeners who that resonates with. And it may be that they have experienced being in toxic relationships and enduring abuse in the way that you've done, or it just simply may be that they feel that they haven't a voice. We're going to go for a short break now. When we come back, let's talk about how you can come back from the abyss, and the ways in which we have a choice. We can actually learn to make the most of these terrible experiences moving forward. So don't go away if you're listening. We're going to be back in just a minute. Welcome back. I'm interested, and I'm sure it's going to be the sort of information that will help our listeners deal with life. I mean, life is full of traumas and challenges. One of the interesting things, I think, is that we are the common denominator that we take into every moment of every day. And when something happens to us once, we can that's a situation that perhaps is completely out of our control. But I think when there's a pattern, when one goes into relationship after relationship, which is difficult, toxic, abusive, it's very easy to see yourself as a victim and think, poor me. But ultimately, from what I believe is that one of the things that's made the difference for you, for example, and for so many of my clients, is when they have recognized that actually they have the power to choose to do something different, and in doing so, change their life. Mm-hmm. So you've reached rock bottom. You've started to recognize that there are some things that help you. What were the things that you would say really made that fundamental difference for you?
So I hit rock bottom, and I was just done completely with living that life. And I had made the promise and commitment to myself to heal. Okay. And what I initially did, and it sounds so small, but these small changes eventually take momentum. And before you know it, there are big, profound changes that will happen. So something as small as changing your eating plan actually really was very beneficial when I focused on using food as medicine.
Yes.
I was in a state of disarray. I was suffering from a head injury, a very significant head injury. I'd had, for lack of a better word, a dent in my skull from the attempted suicide attempt. And I had to heal. So the first thing that I did was I recognized no longer was I going to allow anything that had happened in my past to be a part of my present and where I was going. I wasn't going to allow any of that to define me anymore, because there's this feeling that overwhelms you of shame, regret, humiliation, and guilt, even when a lot of these things aren't yours, but you carry that into your life. And so it works its way into all these patterns and existences that are very negative for you. I let it go.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's so easy to say those words, I made a decision that I wasn't going to carry those forward. They're simple words, but actually for somebody who is not yet at that place where they've made that decision to take on board responsibility for who they are and what they do, making that shift, it's enormous, isn't it?
It is. It's enormous work to do. The first thing that I think is important for a person to do is not live like a victim, but recognize that you are one. Do that. At least start there. Recognize that you are, and recognize that you have value in this world. You're unique. You have a place. You're alive. You have a place here. You have value to provide, not just to people, but to yourself. And you have a voice. You are a being, a resilient being. You have an offering. You are destined to be here. It's recognizing that you are worth something, that you are enough. And it's hard to keep that positivity going, but it does start with thought. It does start with at least a thought that, I'm worth something. Start there. I don't want to live in this life anymore. What can I do? Well, you can start something as simple as using food as medicine, changing the way that you eat, get rid of all of the processed food. We have no idea how processed chemicals change the equilibrium of our body and our mind, and how it affects us negatively. Also, something very small but can provide profound impact is change the negative things that you watch and listen to. That means turning off all the fear mongering on the news. Stop listening to music that has low vibrational frequency and keeps you down or ripped in the throes of grief, and reminders of things that have happened with past relationships. Let go of those songs. Find yourself an upbeat playlist or something that sounds like water or naturescapes. Those have such a profound healing effect on the body, and it starts with just listening. Also, the things, you have a choice here. You have choices. You're making these choices. So these are little tiny changes you can do for yourself while you are even in the throes of a tumultuous relationship. What these things do is they start to take hold. It's conditioning. It starts to take hold in a positive effect. And now, believe it or not, it almost feels magical when one day you can open your eyes and you can see it you can see yourself in a different point of view. You're worth it. You're better than this. You don't need this in your life. You don't deserve this anymore.
Don't you think it's interesting that people often make the grand gesture, but because it's the grand gesture, they don't keep it up, where these tiny changes incrementally make a big difference. One of the things that people will probably get fed up with it on this show, because I say it so often, that everything we do is actually a choice. How we think, how we feel, how we speak, how we behave. And even not choosing is actually a choice. And it's often when we allow things to drift that the impact is most far-reaching. So you talk about using food as medicine. I am so aware that we put, as a human race, we put so much rubbish into our bodies. And if the label sounds as if stuff has come out of the laboratory, don't touch it. That's the easy rule of thumb, isn't it?
Right.
As natural as you can make it. And in doing so, you can save yourself a lot of money and do your health so much good, can't you?
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with you. If you can't easily vocalize what you've just read on the package of your foods, don't consume it. It's not whole food. It's not healthy food. And, but, I think what you've said also, you have a choice. We do. And we sometimes are conditioned to believe that we don't, that,
yes.
When you're involved in an abusive relationship, it makes you feel like you don't even have a voice. So, but these little changes, they're yours to make. You do have a choice. You can make these little shifts, and you'll see that there are profound changes to be made. But also too, getting to how it's hard to stay consistent or sometimes things fall by the wayside, even though you make all these efforts. Now, there are ways to make things stick. For example, starting out small with the things that we've just talked about. Those are small things, okay? But you've got to stay consistent. It's the consistency that will cultivate the discipline. And so when you start to feel good inside, then the next attainable step is something to just layer into your life. And so that's actually the crux of the Transformation Reset, my program that I've designed to help trauma recovery survivors of narcissistic abuse, domestic violence. It's helping them to regulate their nervous system by layering in attainable steps so that they are cultivating a discipline and stay motivated to keep moving forward, because this is a life change that you need to make in order to stop these patterns of abuse.
And I think not only is it that the small steps consistently taken are so important, because you are creating that habit. I mean, 90% of what people think, say, and do is habitual. It doesn't cross the conscious mind at all. And I think that underpinning what you're talking about is the people doing things mindfully, making a conscious choice to do those things, which gives them a sense that they have control over their life. Absolutely. Where there has been a sense that somebody else is controlling their life.
Yes.
And even though it may feel small, it's mighty in terms of its ongoing impact.
Absolutely. And that's the reward for self, is that you have put into action those thoughts by doing these tiny, but seem like, small steps that don't have that impact, but they do. And before you know it, you looked back on your life and you said, wow, I've made profound changes and it felt effortless. It felt like just living my life, but all of these positive changes were put into motion, and I don't look that way anymore. I don't think or behave that way. I'm no longer even attracted to the old types. Yeah. Those are the things that you begin to see for yourself when you begin healing. And it starts with those little steps, but it starts with the thoughts.
Absolutely. We're going to go for a short break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about how getting to the very bottom and recovering or surviving often is the trigger for a spiritual journey and for looking for a life purpose, because I think that's a really interesting thing for us to explore. So don't go away. We'll be back very soon. So let's talk about how, when profound things happen, how that often opens us up to a spiritual journey, to a recognition that we have a purpose. You talk about legacy. I think legacy is a really interesting one. What do you want your legacy to be?
When I pass into the next realm of existence, I want to make sure that people remember the work that I've done in helping others heal in mind, body, and spirit, and that we are resilient beings, that we are self-healers, that we have spiritual sovereignty, and we have the capability to profoundly change our life and not look to others to control or to validate or to even love us. That all comes within. And that is the legacy that I want to leave behind, for other people to see the pathway that I have lit before them, to be able to take the reins of their own healing journey and walk into their own spiritual sovereignty and the resiliency that you are inherently born with, but have been conditioned to not realize or remember.
It's really powerful, isn't it?
Yes.
One of the questions I often ask myself, and I think about so often when I work with clients, is I wonder why it is that so many people only wake up and have that realization when they have really had, either, for me, it was a ski accident and I had to fall 200 feet down a mountain. You had to go through years of narcissistic abuse. What is it that means that there has to be, for so many people, that, crunch before people actually come to realize and wake up?
Yeah, I believe because we are so resilient that we hold on to a lot. a part of our makeup of human body. We are capable of withstanding many elements, you know, fight and flight, survival mode. It's built in for instinct. So we have a threshold that is, you know, profoundly large. And I do believe that unfortunately, sometimes it does take a huge wake up call. I don't think that it needs for a person to nearly find their life gone. I don't believe that you need to get to that point, but there does need to be some sort of awareness that, you know, life is off kilter, you're on a downward spiral. There has to be something, and we're not blind to those things, but we have to be more, we have to be given more information to be aware, to look for these things as being wrong, and to listen to our intuition, because our intuition is not going to steer us in the wrong direction. We know in our gut, our gut instincts between right and wrong. So I think that's what it sometimes unfortunately takes, is for you to reawaken the power within. But you don't need to nearly get to a point of losing your life to make change. It starts with you. If you're not well, I mean, if you're in a low vibrational frequency in life, and you know, life is just one heap after another, taking you down. I mean, those right there, they're wake up calls. Those are wake up calls for you. You don't have to nearly lose your life in order to change it around.
It's my profound hope that conversations like this will help people recognize the pattern long before it becomes desperate. Yes. And so that they can start their path of taking charge of their lives in a really constructive way. Mm-hmm. Learn to love themselves, be their own best friend, and use the criteria that they use to measure other people's performance for their own. Because so often people use much harsher criteria for themselves in terms of, do they measure up?
That's right.
And it's my belief that the sort of work that we both do is about helping people have those wake up calls without falling down a mountain, or without having to get to the stage where you're so desperate that you make the choice you're going to take your own life.
Right.
But the other thing for me, I believe that legacy is often talked about, but when we die, we're going to leave a legacy. But I believe that we have the opportunity, we leave a living legacy in every word we speak, and how and when we speak it, or whether we speak it at all, every action we take, and how and when, or if we take it at all. Mm-hmm. And, I talk to people about, the tone of voice that you use. You can say something very loving, or you can say something harsh and critical. Mm-hmm. Now you can tell people they need to be better than they are, even better, in a developmental and supportive way, or you can do it in a way that's toxic and destructive.
Right.
But it's recognizing that your patterns of thinking, emotion, behavior, and actions really impact on other people.
Absolutely. And that goes for both positive and in reverse with negative.
Absolutely. Now we're coming to the end of the show. Where can people find you?
They can go to www.evolutionarybodysystem.com. And if you would like to be a part of my upcoming transformation reset, you can join my group. It's a small group of 15, and you can book your discovery call. It's free. It's a 20-minute intro call for me to decide if what I offer is a good fit for you, and get to know you. So they can go online. They can also phone call and leave a message to schedule a call, a discovery call, by dialing if you're out of the country, if you're in the UK, it's +011 1888-422-2304. In the States, it's just 1-888-422-2304. But that's how you'll get in touch with me. You can read all about my story in my book called What's in Emerald City, and you can find that on all available apps online, or download it on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. And that talks about my own devastating life journey and how I overcame what I did. I summarized that for you guys in the end. So
that's brilliant. I Genuinely You is very proud to be a member of B1G1, Buy One, Give One. And for every guest, we donate on their behalf to a project. And there are 4 projects that are on the go at the moment. One's about clean water. One's about feeding the hungry. One is around education. And the fourth one is about supporting children in the Ukraine with the terrible situation that's going on there. Which of the four would you like us to donate on your behalf?
Feeding the hungry.
Brilliant. And so we will make sure that we do that. For those of you who are listening to the show, for every 100 listeners, we give a free meal. And for every download that goes on, for every 100 downloads, that we donate to one of the 4 projects. So please encourage other people to come and listen, and encourage people to do download, and Genuinely You will be providing against one of those projects. It's an amazing organization, and if you have a business, I would really urge you to go and have a look. If you'd like to have a conversation with me, then please email me at Gina, Gina, at genuinely-you.com. And you can find the website genuinely-you, which has got all of the information in terms of how you can join the Genuinely You free membership group. So thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next show. And Yolanda, thank you so much for being a brilliant guest. It's
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You take care now, and hope to see you on the next show. Bye-bye now.